I sent a message on my community post asking people to criticize me. I mean, really lay into me. Give me your best complaints and criticisms. I said, I don't like Donald Trump. I'm effectively a Biden supporter nominally. I don't really like Biden, but he's the guy I'm voting for. I'm pro-Palestine. I think that the country of Israel is doing some really bad stuff. The government there, oh my God, it's terrible. Lay into me. Tell me what you think. Yell at me. Scream at me. Tell me why I suck. 1-800-701-8573. I want to know how you feel about me and my positions. So I laid that out on my community post. Still stands. You can still call in if you got messages for me. Let's listen to some of these complaints.
Hi, my name's Catherine, and I have a criticism. Your videos are way too good, and I can't stop watching them, and I am addicted to your channel. I love you. Okay, bye.
Okay, that was a sick burn. I appreciate that. I noticed that when I tried to find criticisms, in all seriousness, I really did, but most of the criticisms, I did get some honest ones, but most people were calling in to counteract the criticisms. They're like, man, this guy's he's going to get his ripped. He's absolutely going to get bodied here. So I'm going to call in. I'm going to leave a nice message so that he gets a break, like an oasis in the desert. And that was the majority of the calls. Okay. So let's listen to some real criticisms here. We got a real one here.
Hey Owen, my name is Jet. I'm from Idaho. I'm a longtime fan. I've been watching since I was 16 and I'm 21 now.
Yeah, 5 years. That's crazy.
I wouldn't necessarily call this a criticism, but I will say that I feel like you pause videos too quickly sometimes when...
What? No, I'm just kidding. I'll step back. Sorry.
That I feel like you pause videos too quickly sometimes when reacting to them. Like, you don't get all the information before you talk about it sometimes. That was all I had to say. Thanks, and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You're right. I've tried to find better ways to do it, like maybe listen to a 45-second, minute-long clip, and then go back to the beginning and cut it up in smaller pieces. Thought about doing it that way. The problem is that in certain increments, if it's longer than a certain amount, then it's a lot easier to get hit with copyright. So I try to break it down to 10, 15, 20, maximum 30-second segments. But yeah, you're totally right. I should try to find a better way to do it. I don't think I included it in here, but one guy said, I repeat things a lot. I tell the same stories as if it's for a new audience, and it makes it hard for an older audience to stay and continue to listen because it's things that they've heard a billion times. I get that too. That makes sense to me. Although I have 3 YouTube channels, and I'm never sure which video is going to go to which channel. It just depends on the subject matter. My main channel is primarily about cults, extremist religions, things like that, Jehovah's Witnesses. My Fireside chat channel is mostly about politics. And my Unfiltered channel is about whatever. We just sit there and play games and listen to Nutter Butter, spread Nutter Buttery all over everything. But I can never be sure, which audience I am talking to, because each channel has its own separate audience. Most people don't even know that I have all 3 channels. They just know about one of those 3. So, yeah, I do repeat things a lot. I'm not really sure how to get around that. I feel like I need to add, information to establish certain things before going into subjects. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. If you have suggestions for how I get around that problem, put it in the comments. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. Can you repeat that? I see what you did there. Yeah, that's a good one. Neverman is here. Quick interjection, this won't take long. If you like what I do, I'd appreciate it if you watch the video to the end. YouTube bases video reach off of watch time, so watching even an extra minute makes the video go further. Liking and subscribing goes a long way too. Finally, it would be awesome if you guys checked out my Patreon. All links are in the description, of course. Okay, back to the video.
Hi, Owen. This is Daniel from Texas. I've been a fan for a while, but I haven't listened as much as I used to. One thing that perennially irks me when watching you is you have a tendency to use radical or extremist as an inherently negative trait. For the record, I am a leftist, but, for my actual point, this country was pioneered by radicals with the founding fathers. a lot of abolitionists went on to form Marxist parties in the Midwest. I'm not saying you can't disagree with these points, but I always thought it was a bit of a simple framing device. It sort of implies a golden mean fallacy, that how reasonable you are is directly connected to how closely you align to the power structures that be. And I just wanted to point that out. It always bothered me a bit. But thank you for your time.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. I have thought about that. Now, I don't know what definition others use for radical and extremist, but let me tell you what my definitions are. When I say radical, I mean somebody that is outside of the norm, outside of the common understanding or the common culture in society. So in 1843, for example, it was radical to believe that slavery was evil and should be abolished completely. It may have been on its way to being more normalized. Let's say 1790, we'll put it that way. 1790, it was a radical position to be an abolitionist, right? So radicalism isn't necessarily a bad thing. There are circumstances in which it is good, but extremism is always bad, in my opinion. Extremism, the way that I use it, is somebody who is outside the norm completely, has gone way too far down a path, and that path has brought them to an ends justify the means mentality. I.e., the ends for a Trump supporter, the ends are to get Donald Trump back into office. The end will justify anything that they do to accomplish that, their means. So the end is they want Trump in office. Their means of doing so is rioting at the Capitol, taking a hostage, forcing them to declare Trump the dictator, basically. Ends justify the means. That is a bad mindset. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what ideology you hold. I don't care. Ends justify the means mentality is bad, period. Jehovah's Witnesses, though they're not violent, have an ends justify the means mentality. And that makes them extremists in my mind. Extremism doesn't necessitate violence, but it lends itself to violence. So that's how I use the terms. I don't know if we're using them the same or not, but now you have a little bit of a glimpse into my mindset on it. I think radicalism is okay in some cases, as long as it doesn't turn into extremism. Ends justify the means mentality and going way too far down a rabbit hole.
Hey, Owen. This is Josh from Florida. There's a YouTube creator called Dark Matter 2525.
Yeah, totally. I know him.
And he just posted a video. I think it's called The One Unforgivable Sin.
I think I've worked with him before. I don't remember if I've worked with him or if I know somebody that's worked with him or not. I know I have been very close to somebody that he's been very close with. They're just kind of mutual friends. We have mutual friends. So I think I've spoken to him before. I don't remember. Anyway.
The One Unforgivable Sin. And it goes into basically describing how, like, the one sin in the Bible that's unforgivable is blaspheming God, like speaking ill of him. And I just wanted to see what you thought about that, because that seems messed up that that's the only unforgivable sin. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you want to see that guy's video or not, but I'd suggest it. All right, bye.
Yeah, Dark Matter 2525 is pretty cool. He's a really good guy, from my understanding. As far as the unforgivable sin thing goes, I haven't seen that video from him. Could be worth a watch. Really good guy, really good creator, really deep and interesting things. Makes you think. Regarding the unforgivable sin thing, I don't know what that was about specifically, but I know that different denominations have had different unforgivable sins historically. So Jehovah's Witnesses have an unforgivable sin, and it is grieving the Holy Spirit. And that basically amounts to apostasy. It's unforgivable for you to attack God's people, as they call themselves, attack Jehovah's Witnesses when you know that it's true, i.e. you've been baptized, you have sworn your life over to the Watchtower Society, and then left and started speaking out against the Watchtower Society, that is an unforgivable sin. But when you stop grieving the Holy Spirit, i.e., stop speaking about apostate things, then it's not unforgivable anymore, because you can come in and be forgiven. Like, you're not doing it anymore. It's only unforgivable because you don't stop. That's the idea. So if you're an apostate and you rejoin the religion, you're forgiven. Everything is fine. That's Jehovah's Witnesses' view. Catholics have interesting views. I think that they have some unforgivable sins, but one specifically is suicide. And the reason that it's unforgivable is only on technicality. It's considered murder, and murder itself is even forgivable within Catholicism, as long as you do penance. But that's not possible to do after you've killed yourself. So people who have committed suicide are unforgivable because they haven't had an opportunity to ask for forgiveness, basically. Jehovah's Witnesses don't view it that way at all. They view it as a mental condition somebody was dealing with, and they don't even factor it in to whether or not a family will see the person again in heaven or the new world or whatever it is. It's usually viewed as a somber, sad event that could have been prevented had people stepped in and tried harder and done more, whatever. But it doesn't factor into whether or not they'll see him. Yeah, there are some other denominations out there that believe it's blasphemy. The bottom line is, in my opinion, there really isn't an unforgivable sin. There is so much variation between different denominations. There's obviously no solid information, no solid verse to establish what the unforgivable sin is without question, or there wouldn't be so much question in there in the first place. Anyway, yeah, check out the Dark Matter video. Sounds interesting. Quick note before we continue, I'm writing a book about my experiences inside the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses. I cover the culture and doctrine. It's understandable even if you know literally nothing about the religion, so I'd appreciate if you gave it a read. To find out more, go to owenmorgan.com/book. All links are in the description, of course. Okay, back to the video.
Hey, Owen, I noticed you've been phasing out the Telltale name. I've been meaning to call you and just tell you that I really like that name. I always felt like your niche was that you actually take the time to listen to what people are actually saying as if they're telling you what they think, so that it's like it's a telltale, it's obvious because they are telling you their tale. I don't know. I always thought it worked. I always liked Telltale. I understand if you're you're moving on from it, but I just wanted to let you know. I always liked that name. Thanks. I love what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I am moving away from Telltale a lot, although when I started it, it was an Edgar Allan Poe reference, and I even had an avatar image that somebody had drawn. I switched it to something that I drew, obviously, but yeah, it was an Edgar Allan Poe, profile picture originally. I'm a big Poe fan. I love a lot of his stuff. The Black Cat, The Raven, The Telltale Heart. Matter of fact, when my kid was young, we lived in Florida, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't know where to go trick-or-treating or anything, but they had trick-or-treating going on at the daycare / preschool that she went to. So I went to Walmart, and I got a black shirt, black eyeliner, and I drew whiskers on her, and black cat ears, And I sent her to school, not as a black cat, but I specifically said to her, tell people that you are the black cat from Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat. It was so great. The teachers loved it. The fellow kids thought it was really unique and funny. Anyway, it was perfect. So I think maybe she's gone as the black cat from Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat since then, too. But anyway, I actually started a publishing company, just a little LLC thing, so that I can publish my own book, because I'm writing a book at this moment. The name of the company is Black Cat Publishing, LLC. I tried to make everything basically references to Edgar Allan Poe. I'm a big Poe fan. I just liked Telltale and The Telltale Heart. I eventually read The Telltale Heart and thought about it. Now, this isn't why I named my channel this, but after the fact, I can apply meaning to the name. If you think about the story of The Telltale Heart, there's a heart beating under this guy's floorboards, right? And he murdered somebody, I believe. It's been a while since I've read. I think he murdered somebody, buried them under his floorboards, and he kept hearing their heart beating. It was getting louder and louder and louder, and the police come, and they're knocking on the door, and they're asking what's going on. Person is missing, and he's hearing, while he's talking to the police, he's hearing the heart beating louder and louder, because the heart will not be silenced. It calls out. It must be heard. Everybody needs to know what is going on, until the man is driven absolutely crazy and he admits it. He tells people what happened. I'm sure you can see how that applies to my channel. Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, attacked me, tried to silence me, shoved me in a closet, keep me quiet. And I'm in the background, beating away, beating drums, talking about what happened, talking about what they're up to, driving them mad by pointing out the inconsistencies and the problems and everything else. Like I said, that was an after-the-fact assessment. That's not why I created the name. I just thought it was a cool name, and I liked Poe. But yeah, thanks for the voicemail. I appreciate it, and I'm glad you like the name. I am moving away from it, though, sadly. Still like Poe, though.
Hey, Owen, Guy Young, Brooksville, Illinois. Just caught a YouTube clip from Luke Beasley where Kate Collins is interviewing Ralph Norman, the Virginia congressman who called for martial law when for Trump to put down use the military to invoke for what the GOP wanted. This is why it's going to be a civil war. Owen, you got to believe this now. You have.
All right, so what Guy Young is talking about here? Guy Young's a regular caller. I listen to pretty much all of his voicemails, but they're not all fit to play on air. Like, some of them are just for me to hear, you know, they're not really relevant to what I'm talking about or whatever. But every now and then he's got something good that I want to play to everybody else. Anyway, what he's saying here, I believe that is probably in reference to the fact that the Supreme Court ordered Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, to remove razor wire from the river. People were swimming across the river, refugees and other people who are downtrodden, the weakest among us, if you will. You know, the people that Jesus said we should treat really well, that we should take care of. If you want to get into the kingdom of God, you have to give water to the thirsty and food to the hungry, clothes to the naked, so on and so forth. Yeah, well, those people were swimming across the river to try to get to safety, and good Christian man Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, put razor wire in the river to cut children to ribbons, and that is exactly what happened. Children drowned to death because the razor wire that Abbott put in there murdered them. The Supreme Court said that it's inappropriate and wrong to put razor wire in the river. You can't do that. Take it out. And what did Abbott do? He said no. He's keeping the razor wire in there, and he invites all other states who agree with him to send their National Guard troops to the border to continue to fight. All the while, they're naming it an invasion. They're saying it's an invasion of foreign nationals, of enemies who are trying to build an army inside the United States. Complete nonsense, of course. These are refugees. All the while rejecting money that Biden offered from the federal government to deal with the border. For the record, there is no real crisis at the border. Republicans have done this since day one. They have always talked about the border in election years and how bad it is and how it's destroying everything and everybody, and it's all going to fall down. We take a look at this one. This is Mark Burns. He was running for Congress. I think he lost. He's a pastor. Anyway, this is 2022. Listen to his strategy in 2022 to get people whipped into a blood frenzy, willing to vote for him.
Why are we considering starting a new war
talking about Ukraine,
for the border of Ukraine, and not doing the same for America's southern border?
because there is no war happening at the border. Because we promised Ukraine that we would protect them. Because Russia is a historical adversary. They view themselves as an adversary of ours, not the other way around. And they're doing everything they can to get one over on us, basically. That's why we help Ukraine. As far as the southern border goes, there's nothing happening there, okay? Yeah, sure, there are people down there that cross, but guess what? According to international law, we must create a humanitarian corridor for refugees to make it to a refugee center to apply for asylum. And what are we doing? Putting razor wire in the river so that they get cut to ribbons. So that last one from Mark Burns, that was 2022. Here's one. Back in 2018, just a couple weeks before the voting actually took place in the midterm elections, there was this claim that a caravan of immigrants and terrorists and whatever else were all coming toward the border to take America or some other nonsense. And man of God, follower of Jesus Christ, Robert Jeffress on the right here, weighed in on what Jesus would do to those poor, downtrodden, weakest among us refugees from war-torn areas with no food, no water, and no home. What would Jesus do for these people exactly, Robert?
That caravan, God intended that caravan be allowed to cross our border. I'm paraphrasing him. But does God want that?
No, look, God is the one who established borders. He is not a open borders kind of guy. Look at Acts 17. God created the idea of nations, and to have nations, you have to have a border.
Wow, okay. So I guess Jesus would let these people get cut to ribbons by razor wire in the river. All right. My mistake. I guess I just misunderstood Jesus' whole ideology, the entire point of his life. Sorry. That's my fault. Could have sworn John Hagee talked about this. I'm very confident that he did, and for some reason I can't find it. But the point is, every time that there's an election, there's somebody out there doing everything they can to scare the shit out of old white people, claiming that there is a literal army marching across the Mexico border. It's nonsense. It's always been nonsense. For the record, immigration is good for a country. Extremely valuable. Russia right now has a crisis where their population is falling. When a population falls, an economy falls. There are fewer buyers and sellers. Fewer people to watch ads. Fewer people to purchase mattresses. Fewer people renting apartments, buying refrigerators. Fewer people spending money, giving money velocity. When a population decreases, it's almost certainly going to lead to some kind of an economic crisis, because the current population is not putting money into social safety nets fast enough to pay out retirement benefits or whatever. Falling population is a bad thing. That's why boomers coming into their prime, coming into their 20s and their 30s and working in the workforce in the United States, built the economy up, made it bigger and more powerful, because there were a lot of boomers. And the silent generation, or the greatest generation, or whoever is the parent of the boomers, I don't remember now, they spent a lot of time building out a lot of social safety nets and a lot of civil rights protections and things like that. They went through World War II. They fought against Nazis and everything. The boomers come in and they find themselves in a fantastic economy. They make it even better by having so many of them. And then they destroyed it, of course, right before the millennials took over. Anyway, Russia is trying to build their economy by paying women to have children. They're trying to birth their way into a good economy. We don't have to do that in America. We have people right across the border who want in, who need a place to live, who want to live in a place that's not war-torn. They want to take part in the economy. And what are we doing? We're denying them access. Not only are we denying them access, but we are denying them their UN-granted right to apply for asylum by putting razor wire across the river. There is no reason to not allow immigrants into the country. It is only beneficial to a country to bring in immigrants. There are two reasons why Republicans talk about immigrants being evil 24/7. Reason number one, if they frame it up like it's a military coming in to invade and attack and blah, 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 then it scares the bejesus out of people. They will crawl over broken glass to vote for the guy who's willing to put up a wall to prevent them from coming in, even though a lot of immigrants come in by plane or come in legally and just overstay their visas. But whatever. If you scare people enough, they'll be willing to do anything, even if it's against their own interests. That's reason number one. Now, reason number two people don't like immigrants coming into the country is because of racism. Plain and simple. There is no other reason for it. Racism and fear. And we see the exact same thing playing out in Europe. You know, here in the United States, we talk about Mexicans constantly and how they're evil, and South Americans, they're coming to take our kids. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists, you know, as Donald Trump said. In Europe, Muslims are the Mexicans of Europe. Muslims are coming from war-torn areas and looking for refugee status. And what do Europeans do? Demonize them. Say they're evil, they're wrong, they're suicide bombers, they're not allowed to wear hijabs, they have to conform to our way of life, or they can't live here, blah, 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 blah. Hate against immigrants is senseless garbage. Pointless garbage. It's just used to promote political campaigns, plain and simple. And what is happening right now as a result of Greg Abbott trying to hurt Joe Biden by claiming that the border is wide open and it's his fault? What's happening is children and mothers are literally drowning to death because they are being cut to ribbons by razor wire. Greg Abbott is willing to literally kill people and reject funding from the federal government to make sure that Biden loses the election. And he, just as Guy Young said, put Biden in an unwinnable situation. He put Biden in a situation where either he responds to the fact that he's refusing to work within the bounds of the law. He's refusing to follow the orders of the Supreme Court. That's sedition at best. Joe Biden would be fully within his rights to deputize the National Guard there in Texas, or I don't know what you call it, take over the National Guard, claim them for the federal government, put Greg Abbott in handcuffs and put him in prison, and replace him with a governor who will work with the federal government instead and follow the dictates of the Supreme Court. Biden is well within his rights to do that. What happens if he does? He loses the election because he looks like a tyrant, even though that's not the case. Greg Abbott is fomenting civil war to stop Biden from winning an election. I don't think it's going to actually lead to civil war, but it very easily could, like Guy Young is saying here. It is disturbingly... I think this is the closest that we've ever come to maybe being in a civil war since 1860-something, or whenever the Civil War started. 1861 maybe, or 58, I don't know. It's disturbing to see. Straight up, I agree. Texas has wanted to break away from the United States for a very, very long time. Well, they may be trying to take their chance. If they do try to do that, Biden will absolutely deputize every police officer and National Guard member and everybody, everywhere in the state of Texas. And he will kick out every single politician, and he would be within his rights to do so. I hope he does. Probably won't, but one can dream. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. Thank you for the voicemail, Guy. I appreciate that. It was pretty interesting. It was a good opportunity to talk about what's happening in Texas. It deserves more attention than it's getting right now, honestly.